All right, I left you right here where we're separating the shorts from the jacket. And so if you can see how deep that shorts are from the jacket, we've got quite a ways to go. And then we've got even more to go to separate the legs. So right now what we're going to work on is rounding this and getting some of that bulk off of there. So whatever wood removal technique you use and whatever wood removal tool you use, do that. And I'm going to make sure all the way across I have that stop cut there to keep me from cutting up into there. I want to make sure that I can get that stop cut and indent or embed the shorts under the jacket. So whatever tool you use, I'm trying to kill a gnat that keeps buzzing me in the face. So I apologize if I look like I'm trying to smack myself. I'm not. I'm killing bugs. Okay, we're just going to continue removing that. We'll take a few minutes to do that. Again, I'm getting those saw marks off as well because I do not like all those saw marks on there. I've said it 100 times. I'll say it again. If you carve and enter competitions, or even if you just carve and sell, saw marks will kill the look of your carving. Saw marks, not only do they look bad, but they also soak up paint and stain differently. And so I like to remove them as quickly as I can because when I get down to the details, sometimes they get lost in the details and I don't really get them as well as I want. Sometimes they'll come off in the natural progression of what you're carving, and sometimes you have to take them off to see what you're doing. I like to get them out of there as quickly as I can because they just kind of bug me. I know if I don't, sometimes I'm going to forget them, especially if it's in a hard to reach area. But I like to get those saw marks off as quickly as I can. I have a Craftsman 10-inch bandsaw, and on it I've learned over the years that I'm better off cutting my rough outs or my blanks with a 1/4 inch thick blade, 4 skip tooth, or no, sorry, not 4 skip tooth, 4 tooth per inch skip tooth. Skip tooth means one tooth goes that way and one tooth goes that way. And the 4 TPI means 4 teeth per inch. The fewer teeth per inch you have, the less your bandsaw will bind up. Because what it does is as it's cutting out the wood, it's making sawdust. That sawdust gets in between the blades of the bandsaw, and it makes it hard to cut the wood. And so with a 4 TPI rather than a 6 or a 10 or whatever other number you use, the 4 TPI allows me to make those cuts and get them nice and clean and smooth. Having said that, you still see the tooling marks as you cut. You still see them on your carving. So I like to remove them as quickly as possible. You can see that we're getting down to where we need to go on the shorts. It doesn't need to be a whole lot lower than the jacket, and we can always go in and take out more wood as we need later. So again, I always like to leave things oversized as I'm roughing out, because roughing out means you're using great big tools, and one slip of a great big tool means you've taken off more wood than you have with a smaller tool. But anyway, I've worked on the shorts and I've gone all the way down to the socks, all the way down through the legs, and now I'm going to work on that because this part, the leg part, is lower than these two. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get them at the same level, and then I'm going to go beyond that. So it's just going to take a couple of cuts and a couple of minutes to get that. Doesn't take much, but we want to make sure that we're getting everything at the right depth and everything at the right space so that when we go to add the detail, we're ready to rock and roll on it. The detail sometimes can be the longest, hardest part of the carving, and sometimes it can be the easiest, because if you've kept an eye out for what you're doing and where you're at in your carving, then you can end up only spending a little bit of time on the detail because that's all you have left. Anyway, this is going to be lower than these two, so what I'm going to do is take a stop cut all the way across that area to the back on the bottom of the shorts and the top of the boot. So just carve straight across, make a stop cut. I'm going to use this fishtail gouge because it's a lot quicker, and I really want to take off some wood in this one. because just in those few cuts you see the shorts separated from the legs. So I'll just keep doing this. I like this fishtail gouge. It's one of the first tools I ever bought when I got back into carving. We used to have a big show here in Boise that was at the Center on the Grove, which is a convention center downtown. And it seemed like at the time, because of the people we had running it and the people we had coming to it, there was a lot of attendance there. And this was back when Cleve Taylor was still carving, and he was in charge of that show, and it was a lot of fun. Anyway, I say that, as my brother tells me, I told that story so I could tell another one. I think I've heard that somewhere before. But anyway, I bought my first tools down there when I really got into carving and got out of carving with a pocket knife. I bought my first tools down there from Gil Drake, and the first tools I bought were a knife, a gouge, a V-tool, and a fishtail gouge. And at the time, I was a brand new teacher and not making a whole lot of money. And so that was a big expenditure to outlay. My wife was smart enough to realize that that's what I wanted to do, and so she authorized me to spend that money out of our account. And she's never regretted it for a minute, because she knows how much I enjoy carving. So she's always supported me that way. Anyway, I bought the first 4 tools, and that was one of them. I need to get it repaired. It's got a little crack right here where the tool goes in there. Next time I see Gil, I'll have him fix that. I might send it to him. But I bought that. I bought a knife, a very flexible, thin knife, and I bought a V-tool, and I bought a gouge. And those 2 tools, I have used them for a number of years, and they still work perfectly, and still do everything I want them to do. You can't buy a better tool than Drake's unless you have them handmade, and those are already handmade. I like Gil and Bonnie's stuff. It's very good tools to use. I'm going to make this leg even lower than what it is. In other words, I'm just going to take some of the bulk off between the shorts and the boot. I still haven't decided whether I want to make the socks there. We still may do that, but anyway, I'm still taking off some of this bulk of the leg because I want it to be skinny. I want him to look like a fella that he just hikes all the time, so he's got those long, rangy legs that are thin and can move like pistons over and over and over as they churn up those hills. Mine are a little more squatty, and so I don't necessarily have those skinny legs that some of my buddies do. Anyway, you can see I'm removing the bulk of the leg because I want it to be thinner, and I want it to embed up under those shorts. I want his cargo shorts to stick out, and I want his boots to stick out. So again, I'm just making it thinner, and I think I'll stop right there and come back and get to that later. Okay, in fact, I want to I'll do that later, but I'll put a little crook back here that makes it look like his leg is bent right there. And we'll take off a little bit more wood here and a little bit more wood there when we do that. That way it'll make his knee stick out. All right. So we've rounded those shorts, and we've rounded those the leg and the boot. I'm going to draw in my stick again because I want that stick. I want to know exactly where that stick is. Don't think it has to be straight because most walking sticks are not. If you're like me, you pick up a stick out of the woods, you find one you like. That stick does not have to be that straight, and it's better if it isn't. Looks a little more natural if it isn't. All right, so next thing we're going to do now, let's round this boot a little bit more. Let's draw those socks in. Let's just make him a thin, not a whole lot, not a big pair of socks, but just a little bit folded over. We'll cut that out with a V-tool, and we'll just relieve that down to it. V-tool is showing me where it needs to be, and then we'll shape the boot around that sock because I don't need to do a whole lot to those socks, but I do need to do a whole lot to those boots. So if I round up to it, all I'm doing is essentially embedding the boots at a lower plane than the socks. and making it look like the socks stick out. Now they're kind of square right now. We'll fix that later, but we'll do a number of different things to that to make sure that those socks stick out a little bit more and look about right. We want the boots to be separated from the base, and so we'll take a little bit off of there. I'm going to use my fishtail gouge, and I'll just take a little bit of that off. I don't need to take off a lot. I've already rounded the boot roughly, and so I'm just going to kind of round it down. Having a hard time hanging on to this thing today. Round it down into the base. So all we're doing is just taking off a little bit here, down to the stop cut that we made with the V-tool, down to the top of the base and the bottom of the foot. We'll draw in again a little bit more about the cleats on the boots, or the lugs, or whatever you want to call them, and then we'll shape this part of it, because that's not the way we want it to be either as of yet. But we're getting there in terms of what it's starting to look like and how it looks. So this is video number 5. We're at 12 minutes. I'll tell you what we're going to do next. I'm going to go ahead and cut this line in with my V-tool. That's going to separate my stick from the back. And we have a choice to make. Feel free to do whatever you need in terms of making this your carving rather than a copy of mine. But you have a choice whether you want to relieve this area between the stick and the body, and whether you want to make that negative space. I've got a carving in which I did that, where you see the negative space here. You can do that if you wish. It makes it a little bit weaker, but you can do that if you wish. Again, make this carving yours. It is your carving, not mine. You're following me along, and all I'm doing is showing you how I do it. I'm not showing you how to do it. And there's a big difference when you're talking about that. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit more on the next video, and I'll see you then.